solar flare activity, which does have an effect on things like the volcano and earthquake activity. Let's get into SHTF news now and let's see what's going on.
And now, the news. Stand by. In 3, 2, 1.
And don't forget, we have our SHTF news Anderson Cooper glasses. We're not going to worry about them today. I'll do my actual glasses for this. So, yes, welcome everybody. SHTF News, Anthology Ultimate Live Show. And so let's get straight in there and see what's going on. Let's go straight into Solarham. And we'll see here, over at Solarham. And here's the map. Now, it's not going to register yet because it's literally only just happened, but it's worth knowing about. We can see here. Let's just do a quick refresh. Now, I was watching this as it was an M-class flare, and then it became like an M1 point something. Then it was M3.0, and then it was like basically now we're at an X-class. Now, my suspicion, I wasn't sure whether to be concerned too much because there's a couple of different regions of the sun, and one of the regions that's been active recently is this here, the 2891 sunspot, which has been active. And my concern was that it was this 2887, which has got quite a lot of complex magnetics going on with it, so it wouldn't surprise me. And then when I saw, and I thought, well, if it's off the limb, if it's off the sort of western limb of the sun, then it's not going to be Earth directed. But this 2887 here is virtually as perfectly lined up to Earth's orbit as you could get, because we are actually on the southern equatorial region. In our orbit around the sun, so anything coming off very slightly lower than the equatorial region is generally Earth facing. To be perfect, the sunspot here would need to be slightly over to the east of the sun's disk, but it's pretty bang on. So I was keeping my eye on this, and I saw it hit the X-class region. And that was when I thought, you know, this is worth letting people know about because typically, because our magnetosphere is fading so desperately, it's like down 25% over the last sort of 50 years, and it's gone down 15% just over the last 10. So it's like an exponential sort of decrease of our magnetosphere. And those that know, those that don't, the magnetosphere is what protects us from the galactic rays and the X-class, the cosmic rays, X-rays and things like that. And so the problem is that we don't really need a massive sort of solar flare anymore to do the equivalent damage of what like an X10 class solar flare would do. Now, to be honest, even an X1, which is what we've seen today, about 30 minutes ago, bit less than 30 minutes ago, just came off the sun. And so you can see here on the absorption layer, this affects things like the frequencies, absorption of the frequencies. We can't transmit very effectively. So the first thing you'll see is blackouts of certain frequencies of transmissions, right? And so as we play this along, you can see as the Earth rotates, the sunspot, the area that the sun's hitting on Earth changes, it sort of goes west as it goes around. And you can see, I think this one here, earlier today, that was a B class. Which I think is this one. Sorry, bear with me. It doesn't even show it on there, does it? But there was one earlier on here, the B5.3, and then the M6.4. So we've got these showing up now on the global absorption layer. And when we come along to here, and you can see this might have been the B there, look. And then, boom. Boom. Right. So, and we're also sort of there in South America, but you're starting to get some disruptions there over in the North American region. So it's obviously somewhat of a concern. And it seems to be calming down now, but we won't know for a sort of day or two when it starts hitting us properly as to what sort of an effect it's going to have. And I'll tell you something else I found quite interesting is that it seems like there are no earthquakes being listed for La Palma anymore. Yeah? Nothing. And I found the same thing when I went here to the interactive map at Berkeley, the seismology lab. Usually there'd be loads of them and they're just all gone. I don't know if is this censorship we're seeing here. Let me know in the chat what you think, but it seems to be this will go on for 2 weeks, says Kitty. We're just having a look, see what we've got going on in the chat. Thank you everybody who's made it to the stream. I do appreciate those that have come here. Like I say, the thumbnail should have been a bit... This thumbnail didn't get updated, so it's still showing the Ultimate Live show, which is obviously on Saturday. It looks like there's a few people in the chat, actually, who haven't actually seen that I've been back for a few weeks now, so that's interesting. My 2 other YouTube channels that I sort of follow things with, I didn't get any notifications on that for the last 2 live streams that I did, so it wouldn't surprise me if nobody else has either. But I guess that's kind of par for the course, right? So yeah, I mean, I haven't checked into Suspicious Observers. He's a good one to follow daily because he sort of highlights some of the things that are worth looking out for. And of course, this sunspot region has been somewhat worrying as it started to grow in its complexity. I think the last time I looked, it was only gamma and beta with no delta. You need all 3 to create the CME. I don't know if it's been updated yet. But we're here on the strong radio blackouts warning here. Loss of radio contact for about an hour on sunlit side of Earth. And again, these ranges of warning are based largely on sort of our traditional idea of what is enough to do X amount of damage, right? But as I said, there was an occasion about 2 years ago where there was like an M9, a measly M9 class, I say measly, but it was an M9 class M9 flare. And that took out the power in, I think it was New Zealand, for like more than 2 days. So it goes to show that our magnetosphere is very, very susceptible at the moment to even somewhat sort of medium strong solar flares. I'm just looking here for something on Spain as well, because again, like I say, the sun's activity is directly correlates to earthquake activity. So I wouldn't be surprised to start seeing quite a lot of activity happening. The other thing as well that's of concern, and you can see here we've got the X1.0 that we've just had, and there was the M2.2 before that. Now what's interesting is that those that are familiar with the Carrington event, which happened, in fact I won't tell you where it happened because that was one of the questions in in the Truth or Trivia coming up this Saturday, so I might have to change that question. But in 1859 it was the Carrington event, and it took took the grid down. We didn't have much power rocking back then, but all the telegram lines were disrupted as a result of that. But one of the reasons that made it so epic back then was the fact that it wasn't just, not many people know this, but it wasn't one solar flare that took us out back then. It was actually 2. There was like one that shot off, and then one that shot off about 12 hours behind it, slightly faster speed, because the initial flare that came off the sun sort of cleared the way, a little bit like snow on a shovel. Yeah, when you're shoveling up snow, it sort of backs up onto that shovel. That was what was happening as the first flare came off. And when the second one came off, it almost had a completely clear run to Earth. And what happened was, back in 1859, the Carrington event, is that both arrived at the same time to Earth. And that was what caused the damage. So anytime I see things like this, where we've had you sort of like a reasonable flare kick off and then you get one following it up afterwards, there is the potential, subject to sort of the time delay between them coming off and what the speed of that ejector actually is. And obviously if they arrive at the same time, it kind of has a double whammy. It's like a force multiplier. So yeah, Serena Joy there is confirming with me they're not listing any La Palma earthquakes. Christina G says EMSC has them, so let's just quickly dial into that and see what we can find. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like there's something there. Bear with me because I've not used this one before. I need to be a bit higher than that. That's nasty. We don't like this. You can't even pan around it, so I'm going to need to figure out. But it's a bit unusual I've always relied on the USGS map for earthquake updates. There's 27 earthquakes going on around the world at the moment. That's extremely low compared to normal. I'd expect to see, you know, like 45 to 60 without things like Kilauea, without things like La Palma. But like I say, it's, you know, I'm seeing nothing there. So there's got to be a reason why these sort of like somewhat kind of like mainstream maps here for showing the earthquake activity. It just seems a bit strange that all the other earthquakes are showing everywhere else, but specifically not La Palma. So what is it they don't want us to see? Well, I got it here live. So this is what's happening with it at the moment. Got Solo Searcher in the house. The razzmatazz. Hit the like button. Absolutely. Got to be done. It's give it a like. Let's get it shared out there. Help other people to see what's going on. Thank you everybody who is here for the Saturday night live show. Really appreciate everybody who made it here. We had a great time. Great fun. Thank you to everyone who was there. Kitty says sun cream, stand by. So there's a fair old couple of car-sized rocks flying around out of that. I saw something recently as well. We can have a look last night. Look, this is kind of how it looks in the night time. It gives you a little bit more perspective as to sort of the activity going on when you see it at night time. I saw a report of a politician somewhere making reference to maybe we can just nuke it. Maybe we can put some sort of a you know, an explosive device in there. To the idea of that was to change the direction of the flow of the lava. So that was the idea, but seemed a bit crazy to me. Dear oh dear, the man's incessant need to dick around with nature just isn't. It's not good. But yeah, that's coming out at a rate. And I saw another report as well that said they were talking about the disruption with the food supply with Spain and things. When you see the crops and the damage of the crops as a result of the ash coming down from La Palma volcano for the European market, it's not looking particularly great for, you know, you've got all of the ash coming down on the crops. So this is gonna literally just add to our supply shortages and food shortages, crop failures. You know, a lot of people don't consider this. They see a volcano popping off and they think, oh, you know, this is it's going to be about the tsunami and things. Obviously, those that are aware with the you know, it's sliding into the ocean and creating a lot of displacement, a little bit like the Fukushima style thing. That was a very similar thing. It was displacement under the water of a landslide. This would be the same above the water. But there's other kind of like more black swan type things that can spin off from it, i.e., you know, the volcanic ash coming down and destroying crops as well. So it's not a great situation, and you know, it does concern me when I then start seeing things like the solar flare popping in. It's just not a good look. So let's just have a quick refresh and see what's going on. I'm hoping it's going to start calming down now and not going to continue, because our shields are so weak at the moment that we really can't handle too much. Let's go back to this one. And if we give it a refresh, we can make sure that it is actually fading off rather than getting worse. It's quite responsive, the solar weather data and things. Does look like we're fading down now, but I'll tell you what, if we get another one now, which is potentially likely, when I looked at this, I loaded the picture in. Where did it go? And was it this one? No. Here we go. You see here, when I first loaded this in, I was a little bit early. I'd only just seen the report of the solar flare, and at that point it was suspected to be an M-class. And I looked at this image to see if I could determine which sunspot it was coming from, and there wasn't really much going on. And then when I refreshed it, you see here it says 1538 Universal Time, and you can see this ejection. Yeah, that's pretty epic. That's a lot of material there coming off. Yeah. Bear in mind the size of the sun is probably the size of my round zoom in cursor, that's the size of Earth in comparison to the sun. So that ejector here, I must get my mouse pointer highlighter, by the way. I've still so many things to finish building the show. It is somewhat still in beta format. But when I saw this popping off, I thought, yeah, this is going to be worth keeping our eye on. And you see I've just refreshed there and that's gone. And now you've got this region here. Now, if the magnetics of this particular region end up continuing to become more complex and we get a little bit more delta, beta and gamma rocking around in there, then again, there's no reason to suggest that that's the end of it. And as the sun continues to rotate, the sun takes 28 days to do its own rotation. So you can kind of work out as an angle how long it will take. So after over a couple of days, that 2887 sunspot is going to be over to the eastern side of the limb of the sun more, which is even more direct view of Earth. So it's definitely worth keeping our eye on, because we are so susceptible right now. There it is, look. See if they got a video of it. I think it's just a still, isn't it? But you can see the proton flux here and the density here. This is, you know, like when you see the speed, it seems to be dropping down. That won't happen for maybe 2 days, and we'll start seeing that ramping up. We could see maybe sort of as much as 800-900 kilometers a second. That's kilometers a second, not kilometers an hour. Crazy sizes of things and speeds of things when we're talking about, you know, solar physics and things, which is why I find it so fascinating. And it's very humbling, because it sort of reminds you how kind of nothing we are in comparison to it all, yeah? In fact, that does look like it's ramping back up again. So it's definitely been some... let's pop back to this screen here. Oh, didn't even... I need to change that as well. There's all these...